The movie Tombstone is a classic. But what if the man who saved this film was not the director in the credits? What if one of the biggest stars took over behind the scenes while hiding it from the entire cast? The real story of how this movie was made is wilder than the shootout at the OK Corral. And some of the most famous lines you love were not written by a Hollywood screenwriter. They were stolen directly from history. Here are the facts they didn't want you to know. When you watch Tombstone, you see the name George P. Cosmatos as the director. But that is a Hollywood lie. The true mastermind behind the camera was the star of the film, Kurt Russell. The original director, Kevin Jarre, was fired only a month into filming. He was slow, and the studio panicked. They brought in Cosmatos to take over. But here is the twist. Cosmatos was not really in charge. Kurt Russell took control to save the movie from disaster. Russell made a secret deal with Cosmatos. He promised to never tell anyone the truth while the director was alive. And Russell kept that promise for years. He only revealed the secret after Cosmatos died in 2005. Val Kilmer, who played Doc Holliday, later confirmed it. He said that Russell sacrificed a lot of energy and essentially directed the film. Russell did not want the other actors to know he was the director. He thought they might act differently if they knew. So he did it all in secret. He cut 20 pages from the script. He made hard choices to keep the story tight. He was the captain of the ship, but he let someone else take the credit. This was not about ego. It was about saving a film that everyone thought was doomed. But why would a star take on so much pressure? And what was the first big problem he had to fix? This leads us to one of the most surprising facts about the set. The director wanted the movie to feel completely real. Kevin Jarre wanted the actors to grow actual mustaches. He thought it would make them look like real men of the Old West. Almost everyone agreed to do it. It was a sign of respect. It showed they were a team. But one actor refused. Actor John Tenney was playing another role at the same time. He had to keep his face clean for a different project. So he was the only one who wore a fake mustache. If you watch the movie closely, you can probably spot which one is not real. The realism did not stop with facial hair. It went deep into the acting itself. There is a famous scene in a saloon where Billy Bob Thornton tries to bully Wyatt up. The script had a few lines for that scene, but Thornton threw them all away. He was only given one direction. He was told to bully. That was it. He improvised everything you see on screen. His character walks into the bar, tries to intimidate the famous lawman, and then completely falls apart. It was a masterclass in acting. It showed how threats disappear when facing a real legend. There was a lot of talent on that set, but tensions were high. Russell was trying to be a secret leader. The actors were trying to bring history to life. And speaking of history, how much of the movie was actually real? That is where things get truly strange. This might be the most shocking fact about Tombstone. Many of the best lines in the movie are not from the screenwriter's imagination. They are from actual historical documents. Val Kilmer's character, Doc Holliday, has some of the most quoted lines in cinema history. Lines like, "I'm your huckleberry and I'll be your daisy." You might think a writer invented them to sound cool. But no. These words were pulled from old newspaper reports and court records from the 1880s. The real Doc Holliday said those things. The writers used journalism from the time to build his dialogue. It gives the movie a strange kind of magic. We are not just watching a fictional version of history. We are actually listening to a ghost. We are hearing the real man's voice. It connects us directly to the dusty streets of Tombstone, Arizona. Even the last words spoken in the movie about his death are real. The screenwriters found Doc Holliday's final words in history. They were not made up for dramatic effect. They were carefully researched and placed into the script. This research is what makes the film so special. It is a Wild West story, but it has a beating, historical heart. But bringing that history to life required some risky acting choices. Val Kilmer wanted his death scene to be perfect. He wanted audiences to feel the pain and sickness of tuberculosis. But how do you make yourself look that sick on command? He had a clever trick that involved a lot of ice and a lot of suffering. The actors in Tombstone were dedicated to the danger. Val Kilmer wanted his death scene to be perfect. In the film, Doc Holliday dies in a hospital bed. The character is sick with tuberculosis. To look sick, he had to shake. But how do you force your body to shake? Kilmer came up with a clever trick. He asked the art department to fill his bed with ice. He laid on it. The intense cold made his body shiver and convulse. It looked completely real. It made the death scene powerful and painful to watch. He suffered a bit of cold to make the scene unforgettable. Sometimes, the danger was not planned. There is a scene where the Up brothers find their injured brother in a bar. In the chaos of filming, Kurt Russell accidentally hurt his co-star. As they picked Sam Elliott up, Russell bumped Elliott's head hard against the wooden bar. It was an accident. You can see it in the movie. Elliott was hurt, but he kept going. He was a true professional. It shows that even behind the scenes, the Old West spirit of toughness was alive. There was another moment that could have changed the entire movie. The studio wanted to cut the famous gunfight scene. They thought it was too long and too violent. But Kurt Russell fought for it. He knew it was the heart of the film. He refused to let them cut it down. That decision made the movie what it is today. Despite all the pressure, Russell and Kilmer became close friends. In fact, they had such a strong friendship that they bought each other the strangest gifts you can imagine. And one of them almost didn't get the part at all. It is almost impossible to imagine anyone else in the role of Doc Holliday. Val Kilmer is a legend because of this part. But the studio did not want him at first. They had their eyes on another actor. Willem Dafoe was the first choice for the role. He was a huge star. But the studio was scared. A few years earlier, Dafoe had played Jesus in a movie called The Last Temptation of Christ. That movie caused huge protests. It was a massive controversy. The studio was too nervous to hire him again. They were afraid audiences would boycott the Western. Some reports even say that the sponsors threatened to pull all funding if Dafoe was cast. The studio simply could not take that risk. That controversy opened the door for Kilmer. He stepped in and created magic. It just shows how Hollywood fears can lead to legendary casting. It also shows how one bad moment can change a career. Kilmer's performance became the heart of the film. Critics agreed that he stole the show. Many people thought he deserved an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He did not get one. It was considered a huge snub. The role became so important to him that he named his 2020 memoir, I'm Your Huckleberry, after one of Doc's most famous lines. The friendship between Kurt Russell and Val Kilmer became very real. To joke around, Russell bought Kilmer a gift. He bought him an actual grave plot in the real Boot Hill graveyard in Tombstone, Arizona. He wanted a piece of the town for his friend. But Kilmer had the same idea. He had already bought Russell a piece of property in the town. He purchased an acre of land that overlooked the graveyard. Neither of them knew the other was planning a gift. They both wanted to give a unique souvenir. Russell later said, Doc Holliday was all about death, but Wyatt's all about life. I guess that pretty much says it all. It is a funny story. It shows that even while making a tense movie, these two guys had a great friendship. But the secrets of this film do not end there. There is one more twist that ties the whole story together. It is the biggest lesson of all. The movie Tombstone is a classic because it feels so real. It is bloody, dusty, and intense. It tells the story of Wyatt Earp and his fight against the cowboys. In real life, the gunfight at the OK Corral was a real event. It was a 30-second shootout that changed history. It is a story of law versus chaos. The movie plays with the timeline a bit. For example, the film shows the Birdcage Theater operating before it was actually built. The real theater wasn't established until December 1881, over a month after the famous gunfight. But these small changes do not ruin the story. They make it better. The filmmakers even brought in Wyatt Earp's family. A fifth cousin of the real Wyatt Earp was in the movie. He played a small role as Billy Claiborne. That is a deep cut. So, what is the biggest revelation? The biggest twist of all is about the ending. Val Kilmer's character, Doc Holliday, has one of the most famous death scenes in movie history. He dies in a bed, and Wyatt is by his side. He looks at his friend and says, "This is funny." It is a powerful moment. But here is the truth.
It did not happen that way.
In reality, the real Doc Holliday died alone in a bed at a resort in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. Wyatt Earp was not there. He did not even learn about his friend's death until 2 months later. The movie gave them one last moment together. It was a beautiful lie to give the audience emotional closure. So, what is the lesson here? The movie was a mess behind the scenes. The director was fired. The star had to take over in secret. The studio nearly rejected the best actor. But somehow it all worked. It worked because everyone cared. They cared about the truth. They cared about the look. They cared about the lines. Kurt Russell took a huge risk. He hid his role as director to protect the movie. He let another man take the credit to save the final product. That is a true act of leadership. Today, Tombstone is considered one of the best westerns ever made. It stands the test of time. It connects us to a rough and dangerous past. It reminds us that even when everything is falling apart, great art can be born. So, knowing all of this, do you think Kurt Russell was right to keep his secret directing role hidden? Or should he have taken the credit from the start? Let me know in the comments below.